Fresh scrutiny is emerging around Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand after new reports suggested that significant quantities of her products remain unsold, raising broader questions about the commercial viability of the Duchess of Sussex's post-royal business ambitions. According to reporting by the New York Post, individuals familiar with operations linked to Netflix have alleged that multiple storage rooms within the company's facilities are filled with products associated with Markle's lifestyle venture. As ever, these items reportedly include jars of jam, scented candles, specialty beverages, and decorative culinary toppings, products that were originally marketed as exclusive, limited edition offerings. One source cited in the report claimed that Netflix employees were encouraged to take the products home free of charge, with at least one staff member allegedly leaving with several items at once. While neither Netflix nor representatives for Meghan Markle have publicly confirmed the claims, the report has quickly gained traction, fueling renewed debate over whether the brand has struggled to translate visibility into sustained consumer demand. The allegations cut against the carefully constructed narrative that surrounded the launch of As Ever. From the outset, the brand was positioned as an extension of Markle's personal identity, refined, mindful, and rooted in a vision of elevated everyday living. Promotional language emphasized scarcity and craftsmanship, a strategy commonly used to cultivate desirability in the lifestyle and wellness market. Yet industry analysts warn that scarcity-driven branding can quickly unravel if demand fails to meet expectations. Luxury positioning only works if the market believes the product is genuinely wanted, said one US-based retail consultant who has worked with celebrity-backed ventures. When excess inventory becomes visible, it undermines the core promise. Meghan Markle's move into lifestyle branding was part of a broader post-royal strategy, developed after she and Prince Harry stepped back from official duties in 2020. The Sussexes framed the transition as a move toward independence, service, and creative freedom. Multi-million-dollar media agreements with Netflix and Spotify followed, alongside plans for philanthropic initiatives under the Archewell banner. At the time, the deals were widely portrayed as transformative, not only financially lucrative, but culturally significant. The Sussexes were positioned as modern global figures capable of shaping conversations around mental health, social justice, and media responsibility. 5 years on, however, outcomes have been mixed. Spotify ended its partnership with Archewell Audio in 2023, and several Netflix projects announced with early fanfare were quietly shelved or delayed. Netflix executives have since acknowledged publicly that high-profile talent does not guarantee sustained audience engagement, particularly in an increasingly competitive streaming market. Against that backdrop, reports of unsold lifestyle products take on added weight. For critics, the story has become emblematic of a wider pattern. Strong launches driven by publicity, followed by diminishing momentum once initial curiosity fades. Public perception of Meghan Markle has also evolved. Early in her relationship with Prince Harry, she was widely welcomed as a symbol of modernization within the British royal family. Media coverage was overwhelmingly positive, highlighting her background, independence, and potential to bridge cultural divides. That sentiment shifted dramatically following the Sussexes' departure from royal life, and a series of high-profile interviews and documentaries that detailed their grievances with the institution. In the UK, polling consistently shows Markle among the least popular members of the extended royal family. In the United States, opinion remains sharply divided. For consumer brands built on personal storytelling, such polarization poses a challenge. Lifestyle products rely heavily on trust and relatability, qualities that can erode when audiences feel overexposed or skeptical. People don't just buy jam or candles, said a branding strategist who advises direct-to-consumer companies. They buy into the narrative of who made it and why. If that narrative feels forced or repetitive, consumers disengage. The Netflix connection has further complicated the conversation. The streaming platform was initially seen as a natural partner for the Sussexes' ambitions, offering both global reach and creative backing. But insiders say the relationship has matured into a more performance-driven arrangement, with metrics taking precedence over prestige. If the reports are accurate, the presence of As Ever products inside Netflix facilities may suggest that the brand was more tightly intertwined with the media partnership than publicly disclosed. That, in turn, raises questions about how the products were distributed, forecast, and positioned internally. Supporters of Meghan Markle argue that such stories are often exaggerated or selectively framed to reinforce negative narratives. They point out that unsold inventory is common in retail, particularly during early product cycles, and does not automatically indicate failure. Without official sales figures or statements, the full commercial picture remains unclear. Still, perception matters, especially in the age of social media, where narratives can harden quickly regardless of verification. Even unconfirmed reports, when repeated widely, can shape public opinion and influence purchasing behavior. What is increasingly evident is that Meghan Markle's commercial ventures now operate under a harsher spotlight. Every development is interpreted not only as a business update, but as a referendum on the Sussexes' broader post-royal experiment. Whether as ever ultimately rebounds, rebrands, or fades from prominence, the current controversy underscores a central reality of modern celebrity entrepreneurship. Attention is easy to attract, but difficult to sustain. And for a brand built on image, aspiration, and personal credibility, sustaining belief may prove to be the hardest challenge of all. The controversy surrounding Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand is not unfolding in isolation. Instead, it has become part of a much larger conversation about celebrity power, audience fatigue, and the limits of influence in a media landscape that has fundamentally changed since the Sussexes stepped away from royal life. When Prince Harry and Meghan Markle announced their decision to step back as senior working royals in 2020, the moment felt historic. The couple positioned their departure as an act of independence, a break from institutional constraints that would allow them to pursue meaningful work on their own terms. The global attention was immense, and with it came unprecedented opportunity. In the months that followed, the Sussexes secured deals that few public figures could dream of. A multi-year agreement with Netflix promised documentaries, scripted programming, and cultural storytelling. Spotify followed with a high-profile podcast deal. Alongside these ventures, Meghan Markle's interest in lifestyle branding was widely viewed as a natural extension of her public image. At the time, many analysts assumed success was inevitable, but the environment that rewarded celebrity branding in the past no longer exists in the same form. Today's audiences are more fragmented, more skeptical, and far less patient with carefully managed narratives. Where fame once translated smoothly into consumer trust, modern audiences increasingly demand authenticity, consistency, and tangible value. This shift is central to understanding why reports of Unsold, as ever products have resonated so strongly. To critics, the story is not simply about excess inventory. It represents a perceived mismatch between image and impact, between the promise of a carefully curated lifestyle and the reality of consumer response. Celebrity branding used to be aspirational by default, said one digital media analyst. Now people ask harder questions. Why this product? Why this person? Why now? That skepticism has grown alongside what some cultural commentators describe as celebrity saturation. The Sussexes have remained almost constantly in the public eye since leaving royal duties, through interviews, documentaries, memoirs, court cases, and frequent media coverage. While early appearances were framed as revelatory, later projects began to draw criticism for revisiting similar themes. Repetition, analysts say, is one of the fastest ways to erode goodwill. Audiences don't mind vulnerability, said a branding consultant. What they resist is feeling like they're being sold the same story over and over again. This context helps explain why Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand has faced heightened scrutiny. Lifestyle products rely heavily on emotional connection. Consumers are not just purchasing items, they are buying into a worldview. If that worldview feels overly curated or disconnected from lived experience, interest wanes. The Netflix partnership adds another layer of complexity. Netflix executives have publicly acknowledged that celebrity-driven content does not guarantee engagement. As the streaming market has tightened and subscriber growth slowed, the company has shifted toward a more results-oriented strategy. Projects are increasingly judged on performance data rather than prestige. Within that framework, ancillary ventures tied to content partnerships face added pressure. Products linked to media deals are expected to complement storytelling, not depend on it entirely. If reports suggesting that as ever products are being stored or distributed internally are accurate, they may indicate that demand forecasts failed to align with reality. Retail experts note that this is a common pitfall for new brands, especially those launched with heavy reliance on name recognition. Supporters of Meghan Markle argue that critics overlook the structural challenges facing all lifestyle brands in a saturated market. Inflation, shifting consumer priorities, and competition from established names have made it increasingly difficult for new entrants to gain traction. They also point out that negative coverage of Markle has been persistent for years, and that any commercial setback is often amplified beyond proportion. Still, even sympathetic observers acknowledge that the Sussexes' public positioning has become more difficult to sustain. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle once framed themselves as outsiders challenging entrenched systems. Over time, critics argue that framing has blurred. Lavish appearances, luxury branding, and elite partnerships have made it harder to reconcile claims of disruption with the reality of privilege. This tension is not unique to the Sussexes, but it has become central to their public narrative. Meanwhile, broader cultural trends reveal an irony. Public figures who openly challenge dominant narratives, particularly in politics and culture, often appear to gain traction rather than lose it. Recent examples from music and comedy illustrate this shift. Artists and performers who face backlash or attempted cancellation frequently see spikes in attention, streaming numbers, and ticket sales. Analysts describe this as a backlash to gatekeeping rather than endorsement of specific views. The more institutions try to control the narrative, said one media researcher, the more audiences push back. This environment rewards unpredictability and perceived authenticity, traits that contrast sharply with highly controlled branding. Meghan Markle's ventures, by contrast, have leaned heavily into polish and precision. Supporters describe this as professionalism. Critics see it as distance. Neither interpretation is definitive, but the market response ultimately decides. Another factor shaping public perception is timing. 5 years after the Sussexes' departure from royal duties, audiences are no longer evaluating potential. They are assessing outcomes. What have we actually seen? One cultural commentator asked rhetorically in a recent op-ed. What has endured beyond headlines? For some, the answer remains unclear. The Archewell Foundation, initially presented as a cornerstone of the Sussexes' mission, has operated with limited transparency, drawing criticism from watchdog groups and commentators. Media projects have arrived sporadically. Lifestyle branding, once framed as a natural evolution, now faces questions of scale and sustainability. None of this suggests that Meghan Markle's brand ambitions are definitively finished. Many businesses experience early missteps before recalibrating. Rebranding, restructuring, or narrowing focus are common strategies in the consumer space. But the current moment does signal a reckoning. Celebrity influence, once assumed to be transferable across industries, is proving far more conditional. Audiences are selective. Loyalty is fragile. Attention does not automatically convert into trust. The Sussexes' journey has become a case study in this new reality. They remain globally recognizable, widely discussed, and undeniably influential in shaping conversation. Yet influence today is not measured solely by visibility. It is measured by resonance. As Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand navigates its next phase, the question is no longer whether people are paying attention. They are. The question is whether that attention translates into belief, and whether belief can still be sustained in a media landscape that has learned to look past the shine.